afternoon, good night. How you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. Today we are going to have a serious conversation. Well, maybe not a serious conversation, but there's going to be a serious talk happening here. Now, of course, I'm only doing the talking, but just stay tuned. Hey y'all, what's up? It is I, MCM. How you doing? All right, so for this episode, which is called Knowing Your Value, stop settling for less in work, love, and life. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. I am not a professor. I do not profess to be a professor of anything except for the professing of being a Christian. So there's that. And it's just a guy in a podcast, and you're listening to me talking in your ear, and hopefully what I will say will be entertaining. If it's not entertaining, maybe it'll be educational. Or maybe it'll be part of a cautionary tale. I aim to make each of my episodes evergreen. Of course, every once in a while I will veer off, and it may not be so evergreen. It might be partially green, but anyway, it is what it is. So I'm going to go and get started. All right, so this is episode 218. Listen. Listen, and then I say nothing. Okay. Let's be real. Most people don't know their worth. And before I even say all that, as I usually cut into something, I usually have a bright idea before I start reading. Okay, listen. I'm not telling you to think more highly of yourself than you ought. And if you know the scriptures, you know that that is a part of a scripture in the Bible, where it says, let no man think more highly than he ought. In other words, I'm not telling you to have this crazy, fictitious, ridiculous vision of yourself as something that you're not even close to being. I'm not saying to value yourself above where you are or who you are or who you've been created to be. But at the same time, you're not a doormat. You have a spine. You have a nerve. You have a backbone, right? And some people push their way and try to get their way above everyone else or others, or they pick and choose. Those people are, sometimes you have people who are very humble when somebody who they respect is in their presence, or a boss, or maybe an ex who had one over on them, and then maybe you're seeing the interaction, and then when that person is gone, or maybe in front of that person, you're not dealt with in such a respectful way, and then you kind of look inside and say, like, what's wrong with me? Why am I being treated this way? Is it me or is it them? So I'm trying to get into the topic, but at the same time, I want you to have in the back of your mind that we all deserve respect. We don't need to try to, as they say, lord it over other people as to what we think we are worth or who we think we are, right? But at the same time, in love, in life, relationships, work, we shouldn't be just regularly being trampled over for just absolutely no reason. I mean, if you're taking a fall for Christ, as they say, or if you are being disrespected because of the name of Jesus, or because you are being disrespected because what you believe, your belief in God, then take that, right? But if you're just being beaten down verbally or in any kind of way, just because somebody feels like they can do that over you, then no, don't take that. That's crazy. So, as I said before, let's be real. Most people don't know their worth. Not really. We think we do because we work hard, we show up every day, we help others, we give in relationships, we handle our, as they say, business. But there's a difference between doing all of that and being treated like you and it actually matters. Too often, people who give the most are the ones who are ignored, passed over, or straight up used and disrespected. And the crazy part is, we allow it. Whether it's work, where you're doing the job of three people and getting paid like half of one, or in your relationship where you're the listener, you're the forgiver, you're the planner, you're the door opener, you're the cook, you're the cleaner, you're the teacher, you're the bodyguard, you're the go-between or peacemaker, you're the backup plan. Somewhere along the line, somewhere, you stopped asking yourself the most important question: am I being treated like I matter? This isn't just about ego or attention. It's about energy, time, value, your life. This episode is about checking in with the quiet parts of you that you keep pushing to the side and getting stuff done. That gut feeling you keep ignoring. That mental math you do when someone else is being praised for doing half of what you do, or being praised for what they didn't do in some respect. And then you're looking at it and saying, look at all I do. You're not saying it out loud because you're too humble. You're too meek for that. Or maybe you're just chicken. That sinking feeling you get when you know you're being used, but you're scared to pull away. Why? Because part of you wonders if maybe this is just what you're supposed to take. Maybe it's the fact that you offered and you gave and you decided. So now when somebody gives you, I was going to say something, but I can't say it. Somebody gives you something horrible to eat on a silver platter, and you can imagine, and you just eat it up. You're saying to yourself, well, I'm sure other people go through it, so it's not that bad. Or like I generally say to a lot of people, it could be worse. And it's true, it could be worse. But sometimes it can be better. I'm here to tell you it's not. And not the last phrase, not the last sentence I said, but before that. This episode is a call to stop shrinking for people who don't make space for you. It's time to recognize when you're being undervalued and understand the power in knowing what you bring to the table. Not in a cocky way, in a real way. Let's talk about how to know your value and how to start acting like it. All right. I'm hoping this microphone is right because it's giving me like some serious feedback over here. I better remember to listen to this one. Wonder if I can adjust it while I'm doing this. Let me try a little something. Just hang on a second. It's just going to be 10 questions, y'all. So, let's see. Oh, it did let me do something. Let's see. Take it down. How about now? Sounds a little better. All right. Anyhow, okay. So we're going to deal with 10 questions. So if you're wondering what the questions are, I'm gonna say them so you can decide whether or not this episode is for you. And maybe this one isn't, but guess what? Including this one, there's 218 episodes, mostly evergreen, and I believe there is probably something for pretty much everybody in one of these or 40 of these episodes. First question is going to be, how do you know when you're being undervalued at work or in a relationship? Okay, I was going to give you the questions, but you know what? I realize it's going to take me a long time if I just ring off all the questions because they're not like little short ones. Okay, so I'm going to do this as simple as possible. I'm just going to give you my opinion. And as I said, this podcast episode is, like all of the rest, for entertainment purposes only. If you find something interesting or something useful, use it. If you find it all total nonsense, then at least you know not what not to do and what not to think about whatever. Here we go. Okay. So, how do you know when you're being undervalued at work or in a relationship? Well, first of all, obviously, there's no appreciation. Maybe you're buying things, or maybe you're making things, or maybe you're correcting things. Maybe you're working overtime or working harder or doing other people's work or helping other people do their work, and there's no appreciation. There's no thank you. As a matter of fact, when thank yous go out, you're not even getting one. Even if you're a part of something and maybe the person that's side by side, whether it's a spouse, whether it's a coworker, whether it's a boss, you're not being acknowledged. That's going to let you know there's no appreciation. Or as I just said, second one would be lack of recognition. So people are just not saying you did it. The dishes are washed maybe, and you're the only person who washes dishes in the house. Fine. It's nice and it's good to teach your family, your friends, whoever. It like recognition doesn't hurt. Thank you for washing the dishes. Thank you for getting that report done on time. Thank you for putting my clothes out. Thank you for filling the car with gas. Thank you for washing the car. Thank you for detailing the car. Thank you for getting it fixed. Thank you for changing my tires into snow tires. There's so many ways that people can show appreciation, and they don't so often. It's expected. And that's when you're with people in whatever the situation who are just entitled and think that it's part of your job or your function to do these things. So they don't give you recognition. They don't appreciate you. Third, they ignore your input. There's something that needs to be done, and whoever, they get it in their head that it just needs to be done just so. And you have an opinion that you think it needs to be done maybe a little bit like this, or the lantern needs to be pushed a little bit to the left, or the picture is just a little bit crooked on the wall and it needs to be slightly raised to a certain eye level. Things that you know, maybe along the lines of your expertise or just something that you happen to know about. And for whatever reason, the person you're with or where you're working ignores your input. Now, we've all been there where we've given input and maybe it wasn't taken because either we weren't forceful enough with it or we were just flat out ignored. And then something happens and it was one of those I told you so moments, and you don't say anything. Sometimes it's just a look. A lot of the time when that happens, people don't even look at you. They know. But it is good to state what you think. Your opinion does matter in certain things, right? When it comes to work, when it comes to your home, when it comes to your relationship, say something. If you know better, say better, do better. Put in your input. And I think once you've given an input enough and you've been not, I'm not saying you've got to stuff your opinion down anybody's throat. But once people hear your input enough times and they've ignored you enough times, if that's what they're on, then eventually they'll start listening. Um, when what you do is unmatched, your unmatched efforts. Maybe what is the simplest? This is one I wish I had a person here, because I don't want anybody to think that, anybody who listens to this to think that, oh, they're talking about me. Somebody that I know, even though, as most people know, I don't tell people I know about my podcast too often. It definitely will not be my family and friends boosting up my views or my downloads on my podcast. Just because sometimes people I know will be the thought process behind topics or sections or answers I give. And I don't want anybody to feel funny. So I make sure not to use anybody's name, especially if they're outside of my family. If it's in my family, I might not use a name, but if my family member was listening, they would know I was talking about them. And I'm good with that. I still don't use any names to protect the so-called innocent, although they're not always innocent. But yeah, sometimes you give a lot. Sometimes you do a lot. I find myself doing that at my day job, where I can stay an extra hour. Something didn't happen and the shipment didn't come, or these things were supposed to be picked up, or whatever was supposed to be here by now, and now we got to leave. The day's over, but the person says they're still coming, so we need somebody to stick around. And a lot of time I'll be the first person to raise my hand and say, yeah, I'll stick around. Don't worry about it. I'll handle it. Or maybe there's something happening after my work hours, and it's important to a few or a couple people or a lot of people. And I've given into that too. I've sometimes given money out of my own pocket to supplement something that's happening at my job that they have no right to ask me or expect me to do it, but I've done it, right? And here and there, why not? For the greater good, you're appreciative that you do have a job. Um, but at the same time, time is money. You're working for money. That's why you go to work, right? I know that a lot of us want to help the people that we work with or work for, but at the same time, we do it for a wage. And once we've given a certain amount of hours outside of our home or with our family, then understand it's like you're giving away time. And time is a very valuable commodity. And it's something that we can't get back. Let's see. Feeling invisible. If you're in a situation like a relationship and you just don't feel like you matter, you feel like you're invisible. You the person maybe you're with is spending time doing everything else, working or helping or meeting or doing stuff with everybody else, and you're there and you feel invisible. That's not right. And yeah, you check in with yourself. You wonder, like, is it just me? Or am I the only one that's not getting any quality time around here? Yeah, the baby's fed. Kids are asleep, matter of fact. Clothes are washed. Dishes are washed. Food is cooked and cleaned and vacuumed. And bathrooms are clean and carpets are clean. And you went to work today, and for whatever reason, there's nothing left. Now, I understand that you have to recognize when it's not the fact that you're invisible, it's just the person doesn't have anything left. But at the same time, you have to understand when a person divvies up their time, maybe it's their day or their week, there should still be some time carved out for you, right? Maybe it's at work and the boss meets with everybody else to have certain discussions over how they feel about the color of the walls. And somebody puts input and maybe on a wall that you have to work out or work with or work around all day. Like, why aren't you being asked? Why doesn't your input matter? And if you're being treated that way, you need to speak up. And I'm not saying do it in a way where you're gonna fight with anybody, but let your wishes be known. Let your ideas be known. Don't stay there and be walked all over. as if your opinion doesn't matter. It does. Or you're just being straight up taken for granted in whatever the situation is. You are somebody. I know this isn't the civil rights movement or anything, but doesn't matter. Like, sometimes the best jobs, I believe, the best workplaces, um, the best relationships are when you're of no one of report. You're of no one of, to be esteemed. If like in society, if let's just say you're a street sweeper, or you're a garbage man, or maybe you're a caretaker, or maybe you're just a moving guy, and you you talk and you deal and you have conversation and relationship with people at the head of the company, or people who come in and deal with your company, and they treat you with such respect as if you were a CEO yourself. Or maybe it's in your relationship and your better half treats you like a king or a queen. And maybe you're just you. And there's nothing that special about you, and maybe you're only a 4 out of 10, and you don't make that much money, and your car is not a fly, whatever. I shouldn't even say fly. That definitely doesn't make this thing evergreen. Um, but you don't have anything that would say to somebody that this is a person of importance. But yet, people around you treat you that way for whatever reason. Maybe it's your hard work, or maybe it's just the fact that they have respect. Understanding that a lot of the time you'll be around people who just have no respect, no matter what your job is, no matter what your position is, no matter who you are to them in a relationship. They just have no respect for you. Anyway, these things will give you understanding that you are being undervalued. No appreciation, a lack of recognition, ignored input, unmatched effort, feeling invisible, taken for granted. That's one. Moving right along. What does it look like when you're doing too much for people who don't appreciate it? Well, you're always initiating everything, right? You're always initiating what the new project should be. You're always looking to see if you can safeguard everything. You're always giving. You're always doing. You're always fixing. You're always holding the door open. You're always trying to take the load off of someone else. That's one. When you're doing too much and people don't appreciate it, you're carrying emotional weight. You're carrying so much, you're caring so much, and nobody else cares. You know, you're stressed out about how's morale at the company, or how's the relationship, and the other person or the other people are just, it's not my job to figure that out. I'm just here. I'm playing my position, right? When we all know that relationships, life, work, family, it's more than just playing a position. You have to care. And if one person is saddled with all the emotional weight, they're going to at some point be overworked and stressed out and burnt out. So if you want to keep carrying everything and doing everything, understand that that will be your eventual situation. So be smart. You're over explaining. So you're doing too much, and you're like, I did this because I went here, and because I had to go over there, then I had to get this, then I had to get that. And all you're doing is just explaining away everything. Sometimes you just got to let things that you do when you know you're doing your share. Sometimes you know you're doing too much. Sometimes you need to just let it sit. You don't need to over explain everything. No no, how am I gonna say it? No reciprocity. Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say it different. I was gonna say no reciprocity. no reciprocity, no reciprocity. Um, you know, we've all heard the term, um, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, right? Well, it can't be a situation where you're always just doing everything for everyone else and nobody's caring about you. Who's caring for you? Just think about that. And are you teaching, say, your spouse or your kids or your coworkers or your team workers or your boss? Are you teaching people to care for you too? Or are you just taking up everything? Oh, you want a coffee? Here you go. I got a coffee for you. It's muddy over here. Let me just pick you up and lift you over this puddle over here, and let me hold that door open for you there. And you're just doing these things regularly for everybody, and people notice. You know, there'll be some people who don't notice, but more often than not, there'll be people who will notice the stuff that you do because you're you everywhere you go, home, away, work, wherever. People will see, people will know if you care about that. But the bottom line is, you know. And even if the person you're with doesn't know or doesn't respect, or there's no reciprocity with that person, I would say continue to keep doing a good job. Keep giving your heart, you know, because within you should feel good about the stuff that you do. Next, if you know, and again, we're at the second one where it says, what does it look like when you're doing too much for people who don't appreciate it? So the next would be your exhaustion. You're always tired. You don't know why. You don't even think about it, but a lot of the time you're just doing too much. You're going to too many places. Sometimes you're not even having your priorities aren't straight. Maybe you're doing too much over here, and then you're maybe shortchanging somebody over here, right? Maybe you're giving too many hours at your job. You get paid for 8 hours or 7.5 hours, or maybe even 12 hours, but you're given 14, or instead of 8, you're giving 9, or like you're taking something from somewhere. And as they say, no one's an island. So understand, when you're shortchanging somebody over here to do something over there, then understand that something's going to be neglected on the other side as well, right? Also, giving without return. Now, I don't think anybody, well, I don't know. I know I don't live that way where I expect. Just because I do, I expect. Now, it's nice to hear thank you. It's nice for the appreciation. It's nice for those things. But I'm not doing things to get back. But at the same time, you should get back. Everything shouldn't be put away in some imaginary bank somewhere of all your good deeds. No, at some point, people should be doing for you as well. In your relationship, 100%. You do for her, she does for you. You do for him, he does for you. You do for your boss, they do for you. You do for your coworker, they do for you. Everything should be back and forth, back and forth. You shouldn't just be giving and giving and giving and giving and not receiving anything. You will not be happy. Guaranteed. Next one. I'm going to have to speed this up. Right at 28 minutes. Geesh. It's a new one. Are you afraid to speak up for yourself? And why? Maybe you're fear of conflict. Maybe you're a people pleaser. And I keep saying I need to stop that. I'm sorry. What can I say instead of Childhood conditioning. You've been taught to be a slave. You've been taught to be a chaiwala. You've been taught to have no spine. You've been taught to be used as a doormat. You're not a doormat. You have a spine. You can bring coffee and you can bring tea or chai because you like to feed others and serve others, but that's not your station in life only. Giver. Although it is nice to give and it is nice to do. But you shouldn't be scared to speak up for yourself. And I understand that, childhood, yes, you've been conditioned that way. keep working, keep working. I've seen people in my family even who do and do and do, and wait long enough, and you'll see the resentment either in their words, in their demeanor, their countenance, their behavior. You'll see something. Maybe you'll see pots and pans be smacked around underneath the sink, or something. They'll come out somewhere where you'll know that somebody's not happy, and maybe they have something to say, but they're scared to say it for whatever reason. Maybe there's a hierarchy. Maybe you're just the wife. Maybe you're just the husband. Maybe you're just the caretaker. Maybe you're just support staff. Maybe you're just, and because there's a hierarchy and you think you're at the bottom of that hierarchy, and therefore you just keep your mouth shut. I'm a nobody. Who am I? Maybe you're, scared of being labeled as difficult. So you just put up and shut up, Maybe you're scared that if you say something, again, you're scared to speak up because you'll lose the relationship. The person will say, you know what, I knew you're a waste of time because you're difficult. Understand there is a hierarchy. Maybe you've been taught that you must, when the family comes over, you touch everybody's feet and you present the sweets to each person, like whatever it is, right? And then I'm not trying to get anybody's culture, but the point is maybe you've been conditioned to be a certain way, and therefore you're scared to speak up. I would really, really suggest to anybody, and this isn't advice, but sometimes people have asked me, and like they'll be like, "Oh, this is the way you were raised, and this is the way your parents brought you up, and this is what you believe because of this." And a lot of the time, I have to correct people because my parents were Christians as well, and both passed, but and they taught me the best they knew how from the scriptures, from maybe what they were taught. But I've taken in everything that they've said, and I've had to weigh it against what does actually make sense, or what does the actual Bible say about certain things. I can't just take their word for it just because they gave birth to me and raised me. You understand? I know there's people who do that. Oh, this is the way I was raised, so this is the way I do it. Personally, I don't believe in that. I had two good parents. They didn't abuse me. They were together all their lives. And they were upstanding citizens and members of churches and did various things within our so-called community, and respected. But at the same time, I know they're not perfect. So I had to weigh the things that they said, the things that they did, the ways that they taught me against the word of God, and sometimes just against what I think is, as an adult, the way things should go. Because, again, nobody's perfect. They did the best they can. They're the best they could. All right, 4. How do people usually treat you after you set boundaries? Well, most people, the first thing would be distance, right? I don't want you to do this with me, or you can't treat me that way, or don't talk to me that way. Usually people back off. Maybe it's a back off as in the way they speak to you, or maybe they give you your space so you can work or do what you need to do, but you set those boundaries, right? And it's not the way people treat you. You have to teach people how to treat you. So after you set boundaries, a lot of time people will guilt trip you. Yeah, that's certainly one. Respect grows or fades. So either you set boundaries and they, okay, I can't do that with you. I didn't know. I can't pass my place. Or you set boundaries and the respect fades for whatever reason. Passive aggression, they'll do things to get back at you, or like I like to say at work, reprisals. It's like, you'll maybe correct something, maybe your boss, and they don't necessarily like you being in the way where you feel you can correct them. So some kind of reprisal. You're supposed to get overtime, or you're supposed to get a bonus, or you're supposed to get a new office chair or something, and somehow whatever you were supposed to get and you're entitled to, for some reason you're not getting it anymore. It's not in the rule books. You don't have to get it. It wasn't part of your contract, but you knew you were going to get it, an unwritten rule, and for some reason, it's not happening this year. Sometimes there's silence. People don't want to talk to you once you set boundaries. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. So they don't want to talk to you anymore. They expect you to be happy-go-lucky, always available. Maybe you said, you know what? I'm not going to get back to you on every little thing, or I'm not going to be bright and shiny anymore for you because I've been giving and giving and giving, and you've been giving me breadcrumbs. And enough is enough. I need a slice of bread one of these days. Give me a slice. Sometimes people are just testing your limits, right? After you set boundaries, because they want to see you set the boundaries, but a lot of time people will test them to see if those boundaries that you set are actually real. So a lot of people will test you. Next one, what's the difference between humility and allowing yourself to be disrespected? And that's definitely sometimes a blurry line. It's not so white and black all the time. Of course, when it happens, you'll know you've been disrespected, and you'll realize that you're humble and you also got disrespected at the same time. There's ways of being humble and not allowing people to disrespect you. That a lot of time that comes with you speaking up for yourself, or saying, you know what, this isn't right. I didn't like that you said that. I don't like that you treated me this way. I'm behaving this way and you're treating me that way. Those two things aren't congruent. You have a right to say that. So there's a difference. You have strength and you have submission. And I believe you can be strong and humble at the same time. And you don't always have to give way to everything. There's silence, and then there's suppression, where you just suppress everything. There's a difference. Like, you can keep quiet, but don't suppress how you feel. Don't suppress the things that you think. You have a right to say your piece. There's healthy modesty. You don't have to be on top of the world. You don't have to shout your name from the highest floor on the building to say you did this work and you better all thank me. But there still should be some respect and some satisfaction in a job well done. But at the same time, you don't want to be walked over. You don't want to be passed up for promotions when you know you deserve them. But at the same time, you don't want to be always tooting your own horn either. It's not a good look. Maybe you tolerate too much. If you're tolerating too much, you're being disrespected. You're being walked over. That's beyond humility. Maybe mislabeled meekness. Maybe you're just, you're saying you're being meek, but you're being walked over. Sometimes you're setting boundaries, but it's not really boundaries. It's more your ego. You have to know the difference between your boundaries that you set versus ego. Do you need to have your name on the marquee? Are you okay with just being a part of the band, or do you need billing too? Stay humble. But at the same time, you need to find balance between being disrespected. Show strength versus being submissive. Silence versus suppression. Healthy modesty. Tolerating too much. Mislabeled meekness. And boundaries versus ego. Number 6. How do you react when someone else is praised for doing less than you? Personally, I don't care. But, most people, there'll be some resentment in most cases if somebody's always being bigged up, as they say, or somebody's always being pushed forward, and you're like, well, what about me? Self-doubt. When you see somebody else being awarded for something that you did, even, or you did your work just as well or better. Um, Internal questioning, where you question yourself, say, man, maybe I'm not doing a good job. Maybe I'm not such a good guy. Maybe I'm not such a nice guy. Maybe I'm not such a good woman. Comparing effort. It's probably not the best thing, but some things are just blatantly obvious, you know? But it's best not to compare. You see somebody else getting praised for doing less, but some things are evident. You can definitely see when you've given more, right? Maybe not in every situation, but maybe in certain situations. Maybe today I do a lot more work than you do, and tomorrow, the next day you do a lot more than I did, and hopefully things even themselves out. But we know that at the end of the day, it's not always going to be even Steven, right? Maybe you stay quiet when you see someone being given praise and you're being passed over. Sometimes you got to stay quiet. Sometimes you need to say something. Maybe you're feeling, why not me? How come? What happened to me? Why didn't I get the chance? Why didn't I get the recognition? You just got to keep your head down and keep working. You don't always have to toot your own horn, as I said before. You don't always have to fight for what you believe you deserve all the time. Yes, sometimes it should just be given, right? Respect should just be given when you're doing your job and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. But we know that doesn't always happen, right? 7, have you confused loyalty with self-abandonment? So maybe you're staying in a situation too long. You're being loyal, but then you're also passing over yourself and not loving yourself, not caring for yourself. You're giving out of what you don't even have. You're ignoring red flags. You're prioritizing others always and not yourself. You're forgetting self-care. You have to take care of yourself. Loyalty at your expense. Guilt if you leave, so you don't leave. I'm just being loyal. I'm just being loyal. You got to remember yourself in these situations. Don't stay too long. Now, if you're in a marriage, that's a commitment, that's a covenant. I think you should always work your hardest to fix anything that's gone wrong. You need to have patience. But if you're not in a marriage and you're not, you somehow you can pivot in a job and still pay your bills, and you could go and look for another job while you have that job. I'm not telling you to look for another partner while you have a partner. That's you're already undermining what your situation is. If you're already looking and already talking because you're in a bad marriage, then understand you're pretty much walked out of on your marriage already, because you're emotionally gone, and that's never cool. And sometimes people don't like to be honest about stuff like that. They say, well, I'm a person too. I haven't been treated proper, so I'm just going to keep my eyes open. If you're going to keep your eyes open, then you don't have a one-track mind, and you don't have tunnel vision, and your focus isn't on fixing your situation. You're thinking about getting into another situation, and somebody's bothering you or talking to you, and they shouldn't be talking to you, and you know they shouldn't be talking to you, but because of your situation, you're like, who cares? Well, then you're not fixing it. They're not fixing it, and somebody else is trying to fix you. And that's what you're going to get. And usually if somebody doesn't have respect for your relationship, then even if you break up your relationship to go with that person, understand they're going to disrespect you too. And that's just the way it goes. All right, moving right along. 8. Why do people stay in one-sided relationships or toxic work environments? Well, of course, fear of starting over. Nobody will want me, right? Or I won't be able to get a job like this. Or I got benefits and I have seniority. Maybe they stay because of financial pressure, of course, right? Got to pay those bills. They got low self-worth, so they don't think they can do better, so they just leave it as is. Hoping things will change, hoping against all hope. Um, Maybe it's just trauma. Maybe you just been beat down and you're just rocking in a corner, like the baby, like that monkey you didn't get affection in. They found out that there were certain signs of like autism, like what happens in a child when they're not nurtured from a young age, like that experiment with the monkeys. Um, you know about that. Come on. Maybe a lack of options. Maybe you really don't have any options, or it's what you perceive as options. So therefore, because I don't think I have options, I don't think anybody else will hire me. I don't think anybody else will date me. Nobody else will marry me. So therefore, I'm just here. I'm going to stay here, and this is my lot in life, my position in society. Sometimes it's real, and you have to realize you're better off with nothing or something, right? 9. Is comparison always a bad thing, or can it reveal how off balance things really are? Well, I don't see anything with comparing situations sometimes, but it's perspective, of course. What is, sometimes you need somebody else's perspective. What does this look like to you? Sometimes you have those people, you have friends who are not necessarily yes men or yes women, but you have friends who will say, you know what, this looks like this, or you're treating her like this, and I don't think you can do better. I think you need to behave yourself. Sometimes you need somebody else's perspective. He's done that for you and this for you, and what did the last one do for you? Or what did that last position that you had, you did all this and you did that, and or maybe you're not doing such a great job and that's why they're not treating you so well. Sometimes you do need perspective, and it's nice when you can be self-aware. Sometimes you do need somebody else to give you a bird's eye view of what it looks like from the outside, a fly on the wall. Maybe there's performance gaps, and maybe there's things that you're making up, you're taking up the slack, or maybe you're causing slack, and somebody else has to pick up the slack from you. So you should understand why things are a little bit off balance. But it's good to see how somebody else in your same position works, or how hard they work, or what they're willing to do, and you're not willing to do half of what they do. It's going to be obvious. Sometimes you need to look out. You can look within, but you also sometimes need to look without and see what other people are doing. Maybe you're doing too much and you need to scale it back. Maybe you're not doing enough. You need to catch up a little bit. The fairness check to see if, again, am I doing too much? Am I taking on too much of a load, or have I left too much of a load for that person? Maybe there's an invisible workload. You think that this is your job and that's your job, and it's not, right? Mirror for self-awareness. So maybe you can really try to look at yourself, really try to look at how you do your job, and you're trying to check it out to see, am I doing a good job? So you have to look at others to see who are doing the same exact job as you. Maybe their technique is different. And maybe your technique is better. Who knows? Or maybe you're just trying to see the truth in what the actual picture is. So you have to compare. Well, I do this, and this person does that. And at the end of the day, we take home the same paycheck, or they got promoted and I'm still here, or maybe this person gets all the respect and I get no respect, no love. I was gonna do 3 more, but I think I'm gonna rush through the last 3. Hopefully you're not, I don't even know how much you're really into this, but I'm gonna rush through the next few because we're really, what time is it? Like, we're already at 50 minutes already. Come on, gee, oh gosh. Okay, news quick. What are some practical ways to start reclaiming your value today? Well, know when you can say no. Ask for what you need. Don't be scared to speak up. Reflect on patterns and make sure they make sense and everybody's being respected and treated well, especially if that person is you. Set boundaries. Don't be scared to set boundaries. I'm not going to say write it down. You can put it in your cell phone if you want or whatever. But keep track of of things that you do well or wins that you get, just so you know. You know what your value is, you know what you're doing, you know what your accomplishments are. Sometimes we do so much for so many other people or other situations, and sometimes we lose track of our value that way. But if you keep track of stuff that you've done, stuff that's like been a success, just so you know, sometimes you need to remind yourself. Cut emotional dead weight. Don't stress about things that you can't control. You can control how you think about stuff, but you can't control what other people are going to do in most cases. You can control your reaction. What message do you send when you let others treat you like an option? Well, you let them know that you have low standards. You have to teach people how to treat you. When you let people walk over you, you're showing them that you have weak self-image. You open the door to disrespect from those people because they realize that you don't respect for yourself. You have no respect for yourself. You're reinforcing bad behaviors of other people and just saying, when you're letting people walk all over you, treat you like a second option or just another option, and then they're just saying, treat me how you want. I'm okay with this. Lastly, number 12. If someone treated your best friend the way that they treat you, what would you tell your best friend to do? Just think about that. I said this to somebody in another way, but I don't know if they even caught it. But the reality is, let's just say you're in a relationship, okay? Say you're married, or just say you're a boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. And you know that you're being walked over. Sometimes the best way to look at your situation, your job, your relationship, if this was your son or your daughter and they were being treated this way at work, at home, in a relationship, on a team, and they were being treated like trash. Let's say it's your best friend, but I'd rather go even closer and say, what if this is your child? What would you tell them to do? You'd probably tell them to leave. You'd tell them to speak up. You would tell them that they deserve better. You tell them not to second guess themselves and they know what they're doing and know what they're talking about. You tell them to protect their peace and stop accepting garbage or breadcrumbs. At least that's what I think you'd say. Listen, if you've listened this far, you already know that something isn't sitting right. Maybe it's your job. Maybe it's your so-called partner. Maybe it's your silence when you should have spoken up. Whatever it is, don't let this moment pass. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. And you can't grow if you keep shrinking to stay comfortable. Sometimes you need to stretch out and get another job. Sometimes you're being abused and you need to move on. You haven't been treated right. Knowing your value isn't about ego. It's about survival. It's about being emotionally, mentally, and spiritually healthy in a world that often doesn't make space for that. From today on, no more proving, no more begging, no more hoping someone notices your worth. Know it for yourself and watch how fast everything starts to shift. Anyhow, y'all, take care. It's MCM, and you're probably right. Peace out. Hey, come check out You Probably Right podcast. Society is getting more unpredictable every day, but at the same time, predictable in its unpredictability. Say that 4 times real fast. Come with me as I attempt to find clarity in all the fog while staying way outside the box and kicking the box way down the road with my size 12 docs. I use the Bible, experience, education, fortune, misfortune, life's lessons, life's mistakes to sort through all the mess. I talk about news, God, God, self help, sports, sickness, health, music, parenting, love, humbleness, hurt, pain, joy, and all the things that might make you say, I never thought of it that way. Hopefully, anyway. Also, I take a stab at answering tough and not so tough questions, and all the while, understand that, listen, sometimes you end up in the hot seat and there's no thermostat. Well, that's how it is here. And because there's no topic, well, very few topics off the table, Torontonians will understand that Doug Ford reference there. Hopefully, the podcast will be helpful and uplifting. And hey,